So I'm so excited today. We have Celeste Roberts and we have Jules Okafor as the guests, and they're going to share their perspectives and experiences with you along with mine. So either of you can take the lead, but just really quickly, who you are and what your background looked like for you. When you were in corporate, were you, a lawyer or a doctor? What did that look like? So we can.
I'm Jules Okafor. I am currently CEO and founder of Revolution Cyber. My company began in 2019, leaving corporate as SVP of Security Solutions. So worked with an MSSP to sell solutions to the energy industry. And I'm an attorney, chose not to practice. And I'm building a second business that's currently in stealth.
Love it. She is like hyper growth. She's on it. She's a serial entrepreneur. I love that for you. All right, Celeste, how about you?
Yes. So my name is Celeste Roberts. Actually, my background, I was an English teacher and professor for about 16 years. And then I decided I wanted to do something different. So I transitioned into healthcare. I actually ended up working at probably one of the most widely known hospitals in the country. I actually worked with the entire system. So I was a coach for a lot of the executives and leaders and managers at the hospital. And I also provided system-wide training for the hospital as well. Now I'm doing executive coaching and training in my own way with my own clients.
Love it. So thank you, ladies, for just sharing that quick insights to your background. For me, we don't need to waste our time. We've done this enough to know what I do. I'm doing it right now as we speak. So just to keep us going, I think it'd be great, and I can share my experience as well. What did it look like? What is your story as to why you left corporate? What was your breaking point for I'm done with this. I'm going to go, leave, whether go to a new company. What was that for you? For me personally, it was the lack of psychological safety. It had been building up, in the past 2 or 3 years in my previous role. And it just got to the point where it was so bad that I was having panic attacks. And it was nothing that I was doing. It was simply the structure I worked in, the lack of organization, the lack of decision-making capabilities. It just was a chaotic mess. And what I do in enterprise risk management, you have to have adoption and integration from an entire company for it to work. And so just really, really fighting against a wall because it wasn't my company, working 70, 80 hours a week. You know what? I have my breaking point. I cannot do this anymore. I'm not fulfilled in what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, whether I'm taking this risk on myself or not, it's the biggest risk I've taken in my life, but it's on me. So if I ever had to bet on something or somebody, it would be on me. So for me, I left after I took some time off for a mental health recovery and then made the decision I'm not going back to that because I had made so much progress. And knowing that if I went back into that same situation, that same ecosystem, I'll be back to square one. So blessed that I have a family and friends that support me in what I'm doing. More importantly, my husband, who's just like, your safety is more than important than any job, any paycheck, any bonus you can have. So that's me. And either one of you can take the baton and talk a little bit about what that looked like for you.
In reference to the last job that is really where I walked away, unfortunately, the handwriting was on the wall from the very beginning. When I started the position, everything that they told me that I would be doing was not what was happening as soon as I walked in the door. And a lot of times when you walk in and everything is changing rapidly, and it seems like they're just kind of grasping at straws, it's a warning sign. It tells you that something's wrong. And I knew that somebody's job was at risk, and I was right. So maybe about 6 months after I took that role, my immediate director was fired and my VP as well. And it was a very ugly situation. What happened to them was really bad. And I knew then if they'll do that to someone else, do that to them, it would be foolish for me not to know that the same thing could happen to me. So there were just a lot of things that happened. There was not a healthy situation, even though I loved what I did. I felt that I was good at what I did, but the culture there was just very, very toxic. And my husband actually worked at the hospital in the system as well. He was having some of the same challenges, many of them related to race. My husband is actually awesome, not just because he's my husband, but he was having some of the same challenges. And my husband ended up getting cancer. And shortly after he was diagnosed, less than a year later, I ended up getting diagnosed with cancer. We were both working at the hospital at the time. And one of the doctors at the hospital said to me, you know, you have a tremendous amount of stress, and you know, this could have come from your lifestyle and the stress that you're going through. And it's really unfortunate because I knew for a long time I should have left. And it was me getting sick that really made me realize that it wasn't worth it.
Right. So thank God, first and foremost, that you both are still here. So that's great. I appreciate you for sharing your transparent experiences with us. I'm sure that that will resonate with plenty of our listeners out there as they pick up the audio from this and the visual of this, and walk through our stories respectively. So one of the things I like to say, I ask all the time, is like, what is something that worked in corporate that I carry with myself in my next chapter? And then the second part of that question is, what is something that they did in corporate that I would never, ever, ever translate to my new life beyond those walls? So for me, it's the things I wouldn't take with me are things like lack of organization, lack of agility, lack of structure, just chaos, meetings after meetings after meetings, because no one has a plan of action. You're just meeting about meeting about meeting. And you're like, well, what did we learn in that meeting? Nothing. We have to go to the next meeting. And so that whole being busy all the time by being in meetings, that thing just doesn't work for me. And I think the other thing that I'm walked away from, and I'm okay because I never played the game, basically the personality and the political and the pick me to be able to get ahead. I was already brilliant in my own right. Sometimes those environments will make you feel like you're not and question who you are, but because most times you're smart, the smartest one in the room. And so you're a threat. It's not that you're in there, they have any other vendetta other than they think you are a threat to them. You don't have to open your mouth. So just the chaos of corporate day-to-day, not having that structure or the rigor that would be conducive to success, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never, ever take that with me into my current role, where I only take, I take meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Monday and Fridays are like heads down days. I'm not doing it to myself. And I have the autonomy to do that. And it's working great for me. I can still meet with clients and people during the day. It's just not going to be on a Monday and a Friday, right? I think, the one thing I would take from them as I went into my new chapter is have, even though I don't use them, frameworks about plans of action, strategy, maps, roadmaps, things like that, literally break down what the intricate pieces are for everyone in the team, so it's cohesive, whether you're working for them or someone else. Now, corporate doesn't always stick to the roadmap and the strategy, but I love being able to take that into my own business and actually stick to it and see that help me along the way. So that's me. One thing I would take, and one thing I would just leave it on the table.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think that one of the things that I noticed is there's definitely no psychological safety. It's almost like there's no concept. The way that I always describe my last position and the culture there, I describe it as kind of when they ask you what you think and what your opinion is, your only response needs to be, I think what you think. And when they say, well, I didn't tell you, and when they say, well, I didn't tell you what I think, then you're supposed to say, well, tell me what you think, and I'll think that. That is the only thing that's acceptable. No matter what your intentions are, how smart you are, oftentimes if it's not their idea, if it's not, if it doesn't come from a person that looks a certain way, a lot of times you find that your thoughts and ideas are dismissed. If you try to, for example, issue, I don't want to say a warning, but just say, maybe we should look out for this when it comes to this particular project, because this could happen. You're seen as negative and not being a team player, right? And then when those very things that you tried to warn them about happen, no one remembers, of course, that you said it. And I think that it was one of the things that really made me take a look at who I am and understand my value and my worth, and that I was a lot smarter than what they were trying to lead me to believe. There's a lot of gaslighting, and you have to know who you are, and you have to get to the point where once you see it over and over and over again, you have to say to yourself, you know what? I know what I'm doing. I'm smart. Yeah. And I know how to do this on my own.
Yes. So. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think the same thing you talked about, when you're in these spaces, you're clearly the smartest person in the room, but you don't have safety. It's best to just keep it to yourself, right? Because we've been to the road where you say something and the person a female who's a different complexion will say the same exact thing, but then I'm told that I am being aggressive. She's told she's being assertive, right?
Yeah.
Or I have something to say, oh, she's being ambitious, I'm being angry. And that just comes from 20 plus years playing the game in corporate, right? Really not playing at all because I didn't really care to do that. But it's just the microaggressions that, they keep compounding, and the aggregate of them is who's going to look out for my safety? No one but you, because you have to have agency for yourself. And it's hard to have someone look out for you because at the level above you, when you're at the director and VP level, that C-suite level is really nobody who looks like you or has a shared experience to advocate for you.
That's right.
So, it's just not safe. And I think for us as women to kind of put that on the board when you're doing your compare or contrast, right? I'm a risk manager, so I was very apprehensive to go out on my own and leave that structure, which we know doesn't exist with more than 300,000 Black women laid off in the past 6 months. And when we were during COVID, we were the ones who carried the companies. And I think the time that it's here now, we're in a reckoning because a lot of women have hit that point like, I'm not going to keep playing this game. I started here a year and they laid me off, or I go here. I can't find my footing. I can't do anything right. We're just tired. So for me personally, my thing is that keeps me going is that I love what I do, but more importantly, I get to do it in the way I want it, in my terms, no one else. And so you're coming to me seeking my input, right? It's a dollar amount, so associated with that. Have you ever been in a room where you're the smartest person in the room, you've been saying the same thing over and over, then they hire like a consultant and they come in and the consultant's like, and they're like, oh yes. It's like, are you serious?
And
are
the
you
consultant
serious?
says exactly what you've been saying.
Yes.
And they paid them triple.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that is I don't think corporate does anything worse than probably that, because it guts you. Because everything I've been working for is so hard and you just keep pushing it aside, didn't take it seriously, one negative opinion. You get that opinion, it's like, oh my God, that's the same thing I've been saying to you for a year. And then for you, it's like, where's my career going to go? Because I've wasted a year on this project and it's not going anywhere. And because the consultant comes in, it's going to be, and I think about that in terms of my lack of desire to continue to climb. It was one point I wanted to be climbing the corporate ladder, be in a C-suite, do all the things. I did all the things that my parents told me, go to school, get an education, get a good job, which doesn't exist anymore. Do all the things, go back to school, get a master's if you want to get promoted, all the things. And it didn't materialize to anything other than frustration, mental health issues, instability, and just made people really hit rock bottom. And for me personally, I think hitting rock bottom was the best thing that could ever happen to me, because I hit the bottom to be able to look up and see that fresh perspective of what I could have for my life professionally and personally. But, it's demoralizing. Some days you go in there, it's like, it demeans what you bring to the table. You've done everything right. And every time you do it right, someone's moving the goalposts. Okay, I have 50 degrees. No, you need to have 60. We go get the 60. Now you have to have 70. And you're doing it in an environment where you're up against people who can't hold your water.
Can I say one thing
please.
Related to really what you said? I think the thing that was the most difficult for me, the thing that really said to me, because I was on my way out before I got sick, I knew I had to leave, and I was coming up with a plan and a strategy that I could do that in a way that I would have a safety net, if you will. But there was so much trauma involved in that last position, and let me tell you why. I really kind of refer to it as my dream dying. And let me tell you what that dream was. When I graduated from college, I still believed that if I worked harder than everyone else, if I proved that I was smart, if I proved that I deserved to be in the room, if I was clearly working harder than everyone else, then I would achieve the things that I wanted to. That work would be recognized, my talent would be recognized, and I would be able to move ahead in my career. I really still believe that when I graduated from college. And when I went to this hospital system, I was able to see, especially being in the room with a lot of the people in the C-suite, which a lot of the people at the hospital never really had the opportunity to be in those rooms.
Right.
But you walk in those rooms and oftentimes no one looks like you. And then you'll have this hospital system tell you that they're getting awards for being such a diverse workplace. Well, there's this strategy that organizations use. Yes, your organization is really diverse, but let's take a look. Are all of your housekeepers, your food service workers, the people that are all of those people African-American or people of color? Are you making sure that you're stacking your security guards and all of that? Let's put the people in the room that are making $300,000 and above and see how many of us are still there. Okay. And you just start to see things when you get to the top. You just start to see things in a different way. And you often see how it doesn't really matter. What we've been told is not completely true. You can work harder than everyone. You can be smarter than everyone. And you can still watch someone that has absolutely no common sense at all do much better than you and get much farther ahead than you do.
And
And
it
so
gets
that's
old.
when the blinders came off, and I had to admit, you know, life is it's just not the reality. It really is just not the reality.
Yep.
And we have to learn how to manage that. But there's a lot of trauma that goes along with figuring that out.
How is that experience, the risk of staying there versus leaving your safety net and moving on? How did that experience shift your sense of self-worth and agency that you have for yourself that others may not see? Um, for me, my self-worth started with my own nexus, my health, my safety, my well-being is first, and then comparing it to what I was up against going back. I knew when I was in corporate, I rarely ever had a leader that would advocate for me and had agency for me in rooms that I was
Yeah.
not in, right? You could say you're going to do all the things, but I'm not in the board meeting. I'm not in this meeting. So
Mhm.
who knows? And it was really challenging to find someone who saw what you didn't see in yourself to really support that and have agency for you to move along throughout the ecosystem. And so for me, I'm on my own. So whatever value or worth I have is my own established thresholds. And for me, I'm going to have the same energy that I had when I worked for corporate, but even more to do something that's mine now. And so for me, I have to have agency for myself. I'm the brand. It's me. There's nothing to hide behind. There's no name. It's me.
So a few things. So one, I think it is remarkable to have 3 Black women who've decided to leave the nest. I think too many people stay longer than they should in spaces that make them uncomfortable and require them to be small. I want to go back and answer your question about sort of what made me leave the nest. We are in this weird box, right? And you talk about a ceiling, but Black women have a glass box. You're able to see all the opportunities that everyone has, but you're not able to do too much in any direction. You can't be too quiet, can't be too loud, can't be too tall, can't be too small. And when I decided it was time to leave, when I was a senior vice president, security solutions. The company had no product when I started. I was the first employee. I became associated with the company name. They knew the company through Jules. That's Jules, Fortress, Jules knows Fortress. Literally, the bosses, I flew to Orlando from DC, sat in their offices, and I'm thinking I just sold, it's probably, this was in January. The last year, I just sold $25 million worth of software that did not exist. So built it, sold it to, a major energy company. And they basically said, we wanted to remind you that this company is not yours, it's ours. And I was shocked, completely shocked. I sat back, listened to them, and the primary complaint was that too many people didn't know that they were the owners of the company. So I could make you 25 million. I could help you build a product that didn't exist. I could be successful, build relationships. And it was still a problem for you that a Black woman was associated with the brand. And I just thought to myself, you're making what, 10% of the deals that you sell, when you essentially could be making 100%, and you don't have to, make yourself small anymore with these people. And so I literally just said, I'm going to take a sabbatical, take some time off. And then if you guys haven't changed your mind by the time I get back, I'm leaving. And so I took the sabbatical over the holiday. January 14th, I went back into the office and they were still on that same line of thinking. And I submitted my resignation. What's funny is that if they had just given me respect, I wouldn't have asked for anything more than being able to make my salary. But they couldn't even give me that. So it just was like, well, what's the point? Like, I'm going to walk away. And even if I fail, I'm going to fail with my head held high rather than succeeding and having to bend my head or bend the knee to you.
So, Jules, when I first talked to you, you gave me a really good, strong piece of advice, and it's never left me. And you said the challenge a lot of times with Black women is that we're so used to being held to a higher standard than everyone else in the room. We become these perfectionists, if you will. And when you decide you want to go out on your own and leave that safety net of corporate, or the nest, as you call it, which I like, we're sitting around waiting for it to be perfect. Whatever that thing is that we're building, we're developing, we want to go to market, we'll make it here, do it there, do it there. And Jules said, just do it. You can fix it along the way. Like, just do it. And I was like, well, wow. She's like, just do it. You're sitting on your own gifts. And so get out of your own way. And for me, that's never left me, Jules. You want to talk a little bit about what that looks like in terms of just doing it, right? You was like, I didn't have an LLC. I just did it. And I was like, oh, you can do that?
Right. Look, I would love to take this into sort of workshops for Black women. And here's why. And I tell people my story. So I went from unemployed on welfare in 2013. I lost my job. I had an abusive husband. I went through a lot 2013. Um, and I basically prayed for God. I said, God, if you give me a chance, I'm not even going to just walk through the door. I'm going to kick the door down. Like, you will never have to question whether or not I am committed to being successful. And I was already an attorney. So it was like, this is my lowest low. And pregnant with one, and then I had a 1-year-old, and so I was trying to make it work. Now, when I got into cybersecurity, I started as an account executive in sales. I then moved. I took my boss's job in 4 months. At the end of that year, my boss, I went to him again. One of these moments where I said, I'd love to make more money. I feel like I deserve more. I'm selling. I'd gone to Zambia for the company, built a team in Philippines. I'm like, I think I can make more money. He's like, no one will ever pay you more than $80,000. You just got into the industry. It will never happen. I literally went home, went to sleep, woke up. At about 2:26, I turned and saw a LinkedIn job that said VP of sales, for some company. And I just did it. I just applied. I said, why not? Like, what do I have to lose? I hate my job. They're not paying me enough. Why not? They called me immediately and kept following up with me, flew me to Orlando. I had to meet in a country club. They tested me. And this is what I tell women. They test you. Can you fit into these male-dominated spaces? Are you comfortable with luxury? Do you know how to speak to, elite or executives? And so I had to do a presentation for them. And I took the job. Everyone around me thought I was crazy. They were like, why would you do it? And I said, why not? Like, literally, if it didn't work out, I was good at what I did before, so I could be good again. So I took that job. I quadrupled my income in taking that job. Could get a nanny, was able to move away from my abusive husband. It really set me on the path. And so my own testimony, and I talk to people about this, like, I've been through so many trials that, like, I like to share the testimony, because quite literally that is the testament to what it is that, one, I can do, but also how I bring other people along. And the one thing I'll tell you as I've moved through my career is, if it doesn't exist, I can build it. If it doesn't exist, I can build it. And that requires a level of faith in yourself that, when people tell me that I don't believe in God, I'm like, no, you haven't walked the walk I have. I've walked, and I didn't know where he was because it was so dark, right? But I knew he was with me. And that's what I feel like is, like, we're so much built in faith, but we don't trust ourselves to be able to get through without it being 100% ready. And you know what? With the way that the market's speeding, we lose the opportunity, because you know where the risk is? It's where you don't know what the end is. Not the people who will become billionaires, they build things that don't exist yet. You can't become a billionaire if you're not trying to set some sort of course. And too many Black women that I've worked with, because I've hired Black women as well, it becomes about, like, can you explain every little detail to me so I can make the best? And I'm like, I can, but it also means this might not be the right job, because I'm being paid to blaze a trail. And if the trail already exists, they don't need me. And this is what we're finding out in the corporate. They're trying to push us out because we're unwilling to be risk takers. But every time, if you notice, whenever there's a big crisis, who do they put at the forefront? Black women, Black men. What do they do? After that's done, they push it to the side again. They give it back and make it less risky. They give it back to the others. We have to be willing to go out there and just not know. And really, when we talk about leaning on God, I have leaned on God. Me and God, I can tell when God's telling me to leave, but I'm moving a different direction. It's why, if you think about it, my computer's fighting with me, and something about this is saying, just go back. It's going to be imperfect. It's not going to be right. You're going to hate the way this looks. But you have a message, right? And we're all called in some way.
Amen. I know this is not church, but we're going to go ahead and say amen right here. I'm telling you, I think for me, that's such a great thing. I always say, when you're in the most challenging situation, that's where your faith is really tested. It's like any other muscle. It's a muscle memory you have to build and develop. And I know sometimes we get in our way, or we're just impatient. They say he's on time. That means all the way, not a minute early or a minute, late. He's there. But I used to be so frustrated in that hallway, trying to figure out what I wanted next, or what I wanted for these corporate jobs. And it was like, why are you making me stay here? And it's like, well, no, it's posturing you. It's not punishing you, because he sees farther than you for your life. It's already prophesied. So you have to just be willing to take the steps. And for so many years, I wanted to do that. And I've done it for other people for so long to Jules' point, you're making them millions of dollars a year. They're going to give you your flat salary. You lucky if they give you a bonus at the end of the year. And it's like, well, if I can do that for you, then I know I can make, and I think Jules is right. Like that whole self-doubt and being a Black woman, like, I can't do it. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. There's a reason why you either left there or they put you on the street because you're good at what you do. And it's a threat to them. And there's no real value to invest in you, right? I think that's another thing to talk about, like leadership development programs, so on and so forth. Those things are so political. They are, aligned to whoever the executives' agendas are. And for me, like I said over and over again, I could never get comfortable playing the game. I'm not fake. I can't do the fake. I do what I do. I'm really good at it. And either works for you or it doesn't. I got tired of having that same conversation every 2 to 3 years. So, here we are now. So that's why I asked you, Jules, to just go in there, because I knew you were going to tell it like you told me. It's a great lesson. And it's something, again, as a person who's trying to find her way and build her own footing, it's something that stays with me every day, right? And that goes into the next question I have about funding, right? Everybody's a VC. Everyone gets $1 bazillion a year. I'm going to tell you the truth about self-funding and what that looks like. What does that look like for you? You're getting started. Like Jules is, she's blessed. Her business is, it's in growth mode at this point. For people like myself who are just getting started and good going, you don't realize the amount of investment, both time, money, energy that you're. Jewel, do you want to jump in quickly and say what it looked like for you when you left? You started your own business, didn't have an LLC, you said just 1099 me. And what did that look like for you in terms of that?
Right. So when I left that company, they owed me commission and they owed me severance and all the things. So I left on, pretty good. But I told you about really not. I had to pitch my idea and get someone who would want to pay for it to make me think other people would pay for it. And so that's what I did. I walked to the bank with the check. And what I would say about self-funding is that you gain a ton of control. You control what you do, how you do it, how fast you move. But what self-funding does also is there is inherent risk in it, because you then become your backer. And most companies that grow really fast have other backers, people who can lose, right? You're basically building something, you want it to move fast, and it can't lose because it's so tied to who you are and your person. So it's a risk. People think in not getting funding that they're not taking a risk, that it's the safest bet, and it often isn't. But what I'll tell you is that there are several ways to fund. Sometimes there's loans, right, or debt. You can have debt-backed growth. Taking loans is something that you can negotiate the terms. You know exactly when it ends, how much it'll cost you. That's also another safe vehicle. Getting a loan from a bank, which is few and far between. It doesn't happen as much as it did. Or SBA and other sort of grants too. They have their own rules. One of the things I think we don't get into as much is like investor and institutional investment funding, crowdfunding. We don't do a lot of angel investing. Or PE. PE is really, in my mind, the last thing you should do. They essentially have a desire to take the value out of the company, and then they typically just tear that company down. But if you're in high growth mode, thinking about investor funding, angels are a good way to go. But angel funding is going after individual people to give you bits of money in order for you to manage. But you end up having to manage each of those people who come into your organization. And then there's the institutional / investor funding. Mark Cuban says quite a bit, especially for Black women, that you should self-fund as long as you can until you get a valuation of your company that you're comfortable with. And the reason why is there are too many examples of Black women building strong companies where the investors take over the board and then they lose the companies. We're seeing that a lot in makeup, skincare. We're seeing that a lot in retail. And I'm often now seeing that a lot in tech firms. Especially you started to see when we were having those DEI conversations where they basically were setting the Black woman aside, and then they were putting white men, in their place. So you have to think about your organization as, is this something that is sustainable without me in it? If I'm not running it, it's self-managed. If your business isn't self-managed, you don't want to take institutional investment yet. If you also are not diversified in the number of clients you have, you don't want to take institutional investment. You do want to think about institutional investment when you can see an opportunity. You need the money to get to the next step. That's often a time when you should take it. For instance, a lot of us, because we like to do solopreneurships and operate independently, we can't go after together we can't go by ourselves to do big deals. But we can if we come together, operate a joint venture and get funding for it. have the power enough and the people enough to really go after these really big billion dollar capability deals. So that's when I like to think about it, because I'm with my stealth company. I do believe, given the idea that it will require institutional investment, and so I've separated it from Revolution Cyber, which is self-funded, self-managed. And you want to look at, if I do, I have a product? Do I want to build a product? Do I want to scale my product? That's when you need to start to think about at least angel investments, seed investments, institutional investments. Funding is another strategy line, right? It's another way you think about your finances. It's another way you extend your runway and extend your cash flow. It isn't something you just jump into, and you don't do it based on liking people or they're my family. You got to do it based on, are they aligned with what I believe the long-term goal is of my company, and do they like me? Because if they don't like you, they'll give you the money and steal the company from under you.
Yeah. First of all, people out there listening, you just had a whole entire crash course in financial funding for your organization, no matter what that looks like. And I didn't want to not put a pin in it. She's correct. If you want to see like a current event where Black women are losing their own, I would go to Uncle Nearest and that whole financial debacle they're involved in. And I would also go to Slutty Vegan, which is a company that, she said she signed away without reading it, which just sounds crazy to me, but they didn't have their affairs in order. And to Jules' point, when you're trusting someone else to fund you and do all these things, you're not even recognizing what they gain control of when you talk about the terms and conditions of that. So it's not lost to me, women who we look like, oh, these are great brands. She has all this stuff. And it's like, okay, well, today you're in like under conservatorship because you couldn't do it right. So I think that's a great lesson that you gave us all. Again, y'all, I told you she's a mentor for me. She's always giving gems. One other thing to you, Celeste. So in your world now, how do you keep yourself motivated to do what you're doing when success is not linear? So similar to what Jules said, today is a great day, tomorrow's a peak, today's a valley. How do you stay motivated? Because when you're in corporate, the motivation comes from the paycheck, the promotion, the bonuses. Like, how do you keep yourself motivated in your own endeavors? Because it's not success every day.
Yeah. One of the things that I actually encourage a lot of my leaders, people that I'm coaching to do, it's something that I've done probably for about 20 years now, is to keep a career journal and make sure that you're really highlighting all of your wins. And I go back and I look at that quite frequently, because that's the thing that helps you to stay on track. What have you done, and what have you done really, really well? So that way, when you start to feel like things are not going the way that you'd like them to go, you have something to look back at and say, these are the things I've accomplished. This is what I've done. I'm awesome and amazing, and come up with what you're going to do next. But it's really important, I think, to keep that in front of you, because that can get lost if you don't.
Yeah, I agree. So Jules, I'm going to toss this back to you. As a Black woman who's in her own entrepreneurial endeavors, what are one or two invisible challenges or risks that people don't see every day that you're dealing with as you walk your walk every day when you get up?
I would say the invisible risks are just, and I said, really big clients when you're really early. So clients have, because they have the money and they have the leverage and a real ability to shift the way that you build your business and the model. And so if you take on, like, my first client was GE Aviation, right? I had just started, I had an idea. So what I did with them became the model for the business without me even really agreeing that that's what I wanted to do. And thankfully, I feel like it worked out, but it became very hard to shift to smaller, because I built something around GE Aviation and other Fortune 500s didn't even work that way. So it was kind of this thing where if you get the money, but what happens is if you get a client that's too big, you have to custom build everything. And what happens is you're employing labor in a direction that there is no idea whether the market actually is ready for. And so I built a solution that was probably 2 or 3 years ahead of its time, because I understood with GE what they needed. So I would say that's an invisible risk. I think the second one is partnerships, toxic partnerships. Everybody says that they want to partner with you until it's time to split money. And then everyone becomes a little bit funny. Right. And so the invisible risk is taking on partnerships that don't serve you, where you're not negotiating upfront what they also need to do for you. I think sometimes you can be so excited about the opportunity that you don't iron out what the initial deal would be. And so they're connected to you, you guys are talking, and nothing moves forward. I find a lot of people do that because partnerships are easier than going directly after clients. And then you're not admitting you're uncomfortable really going and asking someone to pay for what you offer. So go after direct clients as much as possible. And remember, if you're a CEO and you're avoiding sales, you're not a CEO. You gotta get in there, go after clients. So an invisible risk is trying to make things that are not direct revenue a big part of your activities in the day. If you're not spending as a CEO most of your time going out to find new customers, you are doing yourself a disservice. Or building referral bases where people are bringing you customers actively, you're not doing, what you should for your business.
That's actually perfect, because two things. In my model, the solution I'm developing, it's the same way, but it's reverse engineered. So I'll build it out for like a Fortune 500, understanding that's not my client today. So I'll reverse engineer it and make it more accessible to the smaller business or the mid-sized business. And as I scale and grow, my desire is to get enterprise clients. But to your point, I've never heard it like that before, where you're going after the biggest first, you get them, and you have to figure out how to make it more digestible for the companies that may not be on a 500 level. I think that's imperative in terms of building it, right? So for me, it's like building the solution. They'll come. If you build it, they'll come, right? I think one other thing someone told me in the beginning, a mentor, she said, do not be desperate. Do not act out of desperation, because you can build all the great things in the world. Who's going to buy it if they don't know what you do and how you do it and where it's at? So for me, it's like, you have to do both, which is why I was telling Celeste before we got started about the content piece. Whether we want to do it or not, it's imperative. People get their marketing, their advertisement, their information from the internet. We're in a digital world. So you have to figure out how to make time for that. With limited resources, I cannot hire someone to do it full time. So I'm doing it myself, right? But you have to be committed to this stuff. It's not just what you're building or what your product is. Who are you going to sell it to, and why would they buy it from you? So that's what I would say on that. So thank you, Jules, for doing that. Celeste, you want to add anything on that?
No, I mean, I think everything. I'm honored actually to even be on this podcast with the two of you because of the wealth of your experience. I'm fortunate that I have people on my team and in my life that are very experienced when it comes to business and finance. So my husband is a CFO. And my sister is amazing with money. So I have people that really help me in terms of the business, really stay on top of, cash flow management and all of that. They manage a lot of that for me, which I think is great, because you have to know, just because you're good at what you do doesn't mean you're good at everything. And you have to be smart. You have to make sure that you have people on your team or people in your circle that know what you don't know. And that's one of the things I think is really important. It's one of the things that's made things go well, I think, when it comes to my business.
Yeah. For me, I always just say when I was in corporate, I hire smart people. I want to be smarter than me, because what are we doing here? That's a threat in corporate. A lot of times hiring managers don't want anyone who knows more than them, because you're a threat. For me, I was the opposite. I want the brilliant person out there so that I can learn something from them, but also I'm confident that I hired an adult who's a genius and can do the work autonomously. Jules, what does it mean to you as a Black woman who's in your own space, who's created things and a life for yourself based on your genius? What does that feel like in terms of owning your own story, right? No one else owns it. It's your story. It's a powerful one, right? We just went through it. How does it make you feel that you have that story that you can share and you own it to be able to bring it to whomever you desire?
It's an asset for sure. So I was in Tel Aviv, and like putting a lot of the politics aside, Tel Aviv itself is one of the most dynamic cities, and they definitely think like we do about going after things and about resilience. One of the things I realize is that when you have a brand and you think of it as an asset, people want to connect with you to leverage your asset in order to build themselves either credibility or other things. So I think of myself as, even as a part of Revolution Cyber, as something that can be marketed and sold. And so for it's important how I treat my brand. It's important what I connect the brand to. It's important how it is that I leverage it for others and create a platform around it. And so when you think of yourself and who you are as an asset, you don't allow just anybody around you. You can be very thoughtful about, like, what am I associated with? Do I want to work with this company? And now I'm charging like $200,000 to work with me, to bring you into the US. I'm charging $50,000 deals, $15,000 events. If you create the right brand in a space, it is a marketable asset, and you've got to treat it as such.
I love that because I have two companies. I have Risky Business Intelligence, which is the business intelligence ecosystem, but I also have Risky Business with Shreen. We're on it right now. That's more the digital
Okay.
media, the publishing, the appearances, the keynotes. And to her point about the value of that, particular clients, for me, it actually is like leverage. Like I go into these rooms and I'm speaking from a place of my own experiences, talking about whatever the business matter is, but I'm very human about it. So I think that human element and being transparent, like, okay, I have mental health issues. I'm not hiding behind that. I think that goes a long way when we were talking to people, whether you know it or not at the time. So for me, owning my story, literally owning it from a financial standpoint, but I'm owning it in a way that helps me grow my brand and my business, whether I'm doing the business intelligence work or I'm doing the actual media work. So having my own, I have a story, right? I have a story, you have a story, but owning it and be able to tell it in a way that's actually aligned with what you want to share with the world. Oftentimes in corporate, you don't get to tell your own story. They're going to tell whatever that story is, however they want to construe it. They don't get to do that to me because I know who I am, what I bring to the table, and what I'm doing. And that story is actually resonating with people I'm out there talking to. So she's absolutely right. And Celeste, do you have anything else to add to that about owning your story?
No, just owning your own story and being the author of your own story is really important because I felt like in my last role, there was just like this book on the shelf that they were trying to sell, and it was just all lies. It just was not an accurate picture and view of who I was, what I brought to the table, and that kind of thing. So I think when you realize that you're in control of how people look at you, of your business, of how you do business, and the quality of your work, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yep. All right. We had an icebreaker to get us started. Let's have a cooler to just wrap up here. Quick question. Either you can take it. The question is basically the biggest risk you took in terms of leaping your 9 to 5, that's safety net, and going into whatever it looks like for you today. What does that teach you? What has that taught you? And this is for like people who are listening out there. What has that leap taught you about yourself, about your capabilities, so on and so forth?
I've learned to embrace failure. I'm okay failing. I like to be the one who fails first in the room so everyone else knows that they can fail. And then I believe in failing fast. So the faster I fail, the better I get sooner than the other people around me. So taking the leap has shown me that, much of what people see hides a lot of ugliness and toil and crying and tears in the background, like really, really bad situations that I've been able to come out of. But I also know that I'm much closer to whatever the thing is that I'm supposed to be going after. And so I've learned to embrace failure and allowing myself to feel what I feel. I don't go, don't be mad. I allow myself to be a little mad, allow myself to be angry, give it a time limit, and then I'm back again.
Right. I love it. Celeste?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that for me, it's really just being focused, knowing who I am and what I'm meant to do, what I do well, and being honest about that. I think that that's really important. I think it's one of the things that's helped me to be really successful once I left work.
Yeah, I love that. For me, it taught me similar to Julia, which I love, by the way, embracing failure. For me, one of the things I had to learn, this is like part of my mental health journey, was yesterday is depression, tomorrow is anxiety. So if you stay present in today, whether that looks like good, bad, or indifferent, you're going to be better for it. So just basically understanding, similar to Jules, it's not always going to be peaks. There's going to be valleys and things that you go through. But the more you prepare yourself to take that on, and I don't mean you're going to be able to take over the world, but more preparing your mindset that, okay, well, it happened. Let me figure out what I can do next time so it's not that way. And for me, I think about mistakes as opportunities, because if you fix it in the moment, it's an opportunity. If you let it linger and don't do anything about it, that's a failure on your end. But if there's something like she was saying, like, okay, well, that's not how I thought it should go, but here we are, right? That's in my control. If it's something like, oh, well, the internet's out because of the whole building, well, I can't control that. We have a VPN hotbox. Let's just use that. So being fast on my feet, but also understanding that getting anxious about tomorrow and worrying about yesterday doesn't do me any good. I stay focused on what's in front of me, keeping my mind on that. And when the things do happen, because they will happen, just people are prepared that you're not going to have a reaction that's going to take you off the edge. And I think that was my testimony a lot in corporate. Something will go crazy. It's all my fault when I have 50 people around me, but it's me and you have to fix it. So for me, I'm clear in that being in control is what you actually control. Anything beyond that is not your burden to carry. So with that, I'm so grateful that you both were able to join me today. Had a great conversation.